when my girlfriend said, "I'm not cutting off my ex just because you're insecure." I quietly accepted the Amsterdam job I'd declined 3 times for her. She realized I was serious when the new tenant answered my door. I felt something shift inside me that night as I stared at my plate, processing Emily's words. Here I was, a senior software engineer pulling $145,000 annually, having just sacrificed my 3rd international promotion for someone who saw my concern about her ex as insecurity. The irony wasn't lost on me. While she was texting Jake until midnight and defending their platonic coffee dates, I'd been the one covering her $2,400 monthly rent during her job hunt, connecting her with my professional network and turning down career opportunities that others would kill for. The Amsterdam position wasn't just any job. It was a senior developer role with a European tech giant, offering $180,000 plus relocation package, working on cutting-edge AI projects. I'd declined it 3 times because Emily always had some crisis that required me to stay. First, she was rebuilding her career foundation. Then Jake was going through his breakup and needed support. The 3rd time, she'd simply said I was too scared of change to take it anyway. But sitting there listening to her lecture me about growing up and accepting her ex's permanent place in our relationship, I realized something crucial. Emily had never actually asked me to turn down Amsterdam. She'd just created emotional situations that made leaving feel impossible, then dismissed the sacrifice as my personal failing. That's when I understood I wasn't dealing with someone who respected my career. I was dealing with someone who'd weaponized my loyalty. I excused myself calmly, went to the bedroom, and opened my laptop. The email from HR was still there, offering a 4th chance with even better terms. This time, they needed someone urgently and were offering a $25,000 signing bonus on top of the salary bump. My fingers moved across the keyboard without hesitation. I accept the position, start date in 8 weeks. Send. The next morning, I began executing what I now realize was the most strategic decision of my life. See, Emily had no idea what my actual financial position looked like. While she was spending money on festival tickets with Jake and impulsive career moves, I'd been systematically building wealth. My investment portfolio was sitting at $340,000. I owned my apartment outright, and my savings rate was 45% of my income. More importantly, I had something Emily didn't know about: options. My manager had been protecting that Amsterdam slot for me for 18 months. When I called him that morning, he actually laughed. "Alex, I was wondering when you'd stop letting personal drama tank your career. The team there specifically requested you after seeing your work on the machine learning integration project. That project had earned me recognition at the corporate level, recognition that apparently mattered more to my colleagues in the Netherlands than to my girlfriend back home. But the real advantage I had was my professional network. 4 years in senior development roles had connected me with immigration lawyers, international tax specialists, and expat communities across Europe. Within 48 hours, I had legal consultations scheduled, relocation logistics mapped out, and tax optimization strategies in place. Emily saw me working late and assumed it was regular project deadlines. She had no idea I was methodically planning my exit from a relationship that had become a one-way street. The beautiful part was how completely Emily had misread the situation. She thought my predictability was weakness when it was actually strategic patience. While Jake was bouncing between gig jobs and burning through credit cards on spontaneous trips, I'd been building the kind of stable success that opened international doors. While Emily was chasing excitement through emotional drama, I'd been creating actual opportunities for adventure, the kind that came with 6-figure salaries and European work visas. I spent the following weeks observing Emily's behavior with new clarity. She'd text Jake during our dinner dates, like his Instagram posts of expensive dinners he couldn't afford, and speak about their deep conversations while barely asking about my work projects. When I mentioned client meetings or technical challenges, she'd redirect to Jake's latest adventure blog idea or some drama in his friend group. It became obvious that I wasn't a partner in her life. I was a financial and emotional safety net she could ignore while pursuing more interesting options. The apartment situation was particularly telling. I owned the place, but Emily had been living there rent-free for 2 years while building her savings. She'd redecorated, hosted her friends, and treated it like her space. When Jake started coming over for their work sessions on his travel blog, she didn't even ask if I was comfortable with it. My own home had become a casual hangout spot for the man she was emotionally investing in while taking my financial investment for granted. 3 weeks before my departure date, I had everything arranged. The apartment was discreetly listed with a property management company. My belongings were sorted between shipping containers and storage units. I'd given notice at work, transitioned my projects, and gotten enthusiastic recommendations from colleagues who'd seen my technical capabilities. Most importantly, I had secured temporary corporate housing in Amsterdam while I apartment hunted, with the company covering costs for the first month. Emily was completely oblivious. She was too busy planning weekend trips with Jake and posting vague social media updates about following your heart and not settling for safe choices. The irony was incredible. She thought she was choosing adventure over safety, while I was literally moving to another continent for career advancement. She saw Jake's impulsive lifestyle as exciting, while my international job offer was somehow predictable. That's when karma began its work, though I didn't realize it yet. Jake's spontaneous lifestyle was catching up with him financially. From what I overheard during their phone calls, he was juggling multiple credit cards, and his gig income couldn't cover his expensive tastes. Emily, fresh off our stable financial situation, didn't recognize the warning signs. She was still thinking like someone with a safety net, not realizing she was about to follow someone over a cliff. The breaking point came exactly 1 month before my flight date. Emily announced she needed space to figure things out, but wanted to keep the apartment while she stayed with friends. Translation: she wanted to maintain her free housing while escalating things with Jake, keeping me as a backup plan in case her adventure didn't work out. Her assumption was that I'd wait around, maybe even help pay for her finding herself period. Instead, I handed her the keys and said she could have the place. Her face lit up until I mentioned she'd need to coordinate with the new tenant about the lease transfer. New tenant? She asked, confused. That's when I explained that I'd already rented it to a graduate student starting in 3 weeks, and I'd be in Amsterdam by then, starting my new position. The silence stretched for nearly a minute as she processed what I was saying. You took the Amsterdam job? Without discussing it with me? Emily's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. It occurred to me that in 4 years together, I'd never made a major decision without considering her opinion first. This was her first experience with me prioritizing my own interests, and she clearly didn't know how to handle it. I explained calmly that since she needed space to figure things out, this seemed like perfect timing. She'd have complete freedom to explore her connection with Jake without worrying about my insecurity, and I'd have the international career opportunity I'd been wanting. When she protested that she didn't want to break up entirely, just needed room to breathe, I pointed out that she'd get plenty of room with me on another continent. The next 2 weeks revealed Emily's true priorities. Instead of trying to work things out or expressing any sadness about the relationship ending, she immediately ramped up her time with Jake. They were posting couples photos within days, making their relationship Instagram official, while I was quietly packing my professional life into shipping containers. Her social circle seemed thrilled about the upgrade from boring, stable Alex to exciting, adventurous Jake. I heard through mutual friends that Emily had been telling people I couldn't handle her independence and had run away to Europe rather than deal with her growing as a person. The narrative painted me as the insecure ex who couldn't compete with her exciting new relationship. I didn't bother correcting it. Anyone who knew my actual career trajectory and financial position could see through that story, and anyone who believed it wasn't worth my time anyway. The day before my departure, I handed the apartment keys to Marcus, the philosophy graduate student who'd be taking over the lease. Emily had been messaging mutual friends asking about Alex's timeline and whether I was really serious about this Europe thing. She apparently assumed I'd change my mind at the last minute, maybe even beg her to reconsider. Instead, she got radio silence and a locked apartment when she showed up with Jake to collect her things. Things she'd already moved out during her space period. Landing in Amsterdam felt surreal. The canal views, the bike culture, the international team of brilliant developers. It was everything I'd imagined and more. My new colleagues welcomed me with dinner invitations and neighborhood recommendations. The work was challenging and engaging, diving into machine learning projects that were years ahead of anything I'd worked on in the States. Within 2 weeks, I'd found a modern apartment overlooking Vondel Park and was exploring European cities on weekends. Meanwhile, Emily's adventure was developing cracks. Jake's financial situation was worse than even I'd realized. Through sporadic updates from mutual friends, I learned he'd been evicted from his place right before their relationship went public. Emily, riding high on her new romance, offered to support them both while he focused on building his travel blog. Her savings, the same money I'd helped her accumulate, was now funding Jake's lifestyle while he allegedly worked on monetizing his social media presence. The travel blog never materialized into actual income. Instead, Jake seemed to view Emily as his personal sponsorship program. They took expensive trips that she paid for, ate at restaurants beyond his means, and maintained the appearance of an exciting lifestyle that was draining Emily's financial reserves. When mutual friends posted their adventures, Jake was always prominently featured, but Emily was the one handling payments and logistics. 3 months into my Amsterdam life, the updates from home took a sharp turn. Jake had been seeing other women during their travel content creation trips, using Emily's financial backing to fund dates with Instagram models he wanted to feature on his blog. When Emily confronted him, he accused her of being controlling and not understanding the networking requirements of content creation. The parallels to her accusations against me were striking, except Jake was actually cheating while I just asked for basic relationship boundaries. Emily's financial situation deteriorated rapidly. She'd quit her marketing job impulsively to travel with Jake, burning bridges with her employer and professional network. When their relationship imploded, she found herself suddenly unemployed, with depleted savings, and facing a competitive job market without recent experience. The adventure she'd chosen over stability had left her in exactly the precarious position I'd always helped her avoid. Her attempts to reach out started subtle but escalated quickly. First, professional emails asking about industry contacts and job opportunities. When I didn't respond, she tried reaching mutual friends, asking them to check if Alex is okay and whether I might be willing to provide professional references. The woman who'd told me to grow up and accept her ex's presence was now hoping her ex would help rebuild the career she'd abandoned for someone else's ex. The desperate phase began around month 4. Emily discovered through mutual connections that I'd been promoted to lead developer, was traveling across Europe for client meetings, and had been featured in industry publications for my AI project contributions. The predictable career she'd dismissed was generating exactly the kind of international recognition and lifestyle benefits she'd thought she was trading up for with Jake. Her sister Lisa, who'd always encouraged Emily's independence from my limiting influence, started messaging me directly. "Emily's going through a really tough time and could use a friend," she wrote, as if I might have forgotten how thoroughly Emily had dismissed our relationship's value. When I didn't respond, Lisa escalated to calling me selfish for abandoning Emily when she needed support, conveniently forgetting that Emily had explicitly chosen to end our relationship for someone more exciting. The irony was breathtaking. The same family members who'd supported Emily's decision to choose Jake over stable, boring Alex were now pressuring me to rescue Emily from the consequences of that choice. They seemed to believe I owed her continued emotional and professional support, despite her having clearly communicated that she preferred Jake's approach to life over mine. Emily's financial crisis deepened when she couldn't find work in her field. Her abrupt departure from her last position raised red flags with potential employers, and her depleted professional network made job hunting significantly harder. The contacts I'd shared with her during our relationship had been her primary pathway into better opportunities, and burning that bridge left her starting over at entry level in a competitive market. Meanwhile, my Amsterdam life was exceeding every expectation. Weekend trips to Paris, Berlin, and Barcelona, professional conferences in London and Stockholm, a social circle of international colleagues who shared my interest in technology and travel. I'd started learning Dutch, joined a cycling group that explored the countryside, and was dating casually without the drama and manipulation I'd somehow accepted as normal in my relationship with Emily. The final confrontation came 6 months later at a mutual friend's wedding. I'd flown back for the celebration, looking healthy and confident after months of European lifestyle and professional success. Emily was there, visibly struggling financially and socially. Her outfit looked worn, her demeanor was anxious, and she was clearly hoping to corner me for a conversation. She approached me during cocktail hour with a prepared speech about how she'd made mistakes and learned to value stability. She painted her relationship with Jake as a learning experience that helped her realize I'd been the real partner all along. Most tellingly, she suggested she could visit Amsterdam and we could start fresh in my new life. She wasn't interested in rebuilding what we'd had. She wanted access to what I'd built without her. I listened politely, then explained that I appreciated her honesty, but had moved on completely. The life I'd built in Amsterdam was exactly what I wanted, and it didn't include revisiting relationships with people who demonstrated such clear disregard for my value. Emily seemed stunned that I wasn't interested in reconciliation, as if my success and happiness were somehow temporary arrangements, until she decided she wanted them back. When she pressed harder, mentioning how cruel it was to cut off someone I'd once loved, I realized she fundamentally misunderstood the situation. I hadn't cut her off out of spite or revenge. I'd simply built a life that didn't include her, the same way she'd tried to build a life that didn't include me. The difference was that my approach had worked, while hers had backfired spectacularly. Her final words were telling. "You'll regret this when you realize what you're giving up." But I wasn't giving up anything. I was protecting something valuable, a life I'd created through strategic thinking, professional competence, and the kind of planning Emily had always dismissed as boring. She was still thinking I'd eventually need her in my life, not understanding that I'd already proven I was happier and more successful without her. Back in Amsterdam, I received one last message from Emily through a mutual friend. She was asking for professional references to help with her job search, and whether I might know anyone in marketing who could provide guidance. It was the final confirmation that she viewed our entire relationship history through the lens of what I could provide for her, rather than what we'd shared together. I deleted the message without responding and blocked her on all remaining platforms, not out of anger, but out of recognition that some chapters need to end decisively. Emily had taught me an important lesson about knowing my own value and not accepting relationships where that value was taken for granted. The woman who'd told me to grow up had inadvertently forced me to do exactly that, just not in the way she'd intended. Today I'm thriving in Amsterdam with a senior leadership position, international recognition in my field, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than convenience. Emily eventually found employment and is rebuilding her life. Jake moved on to his next financial sponsor after burning through Emily's savings. Lisa learned to mind her own business after realizing her interference had cost her sister a genuinely good relationship. Marcus finished his philosophy degree and now teaches at a university in Berlin. The best revenge I learned wasn't anything I did to Emily. It was simply being successful enough that her opinion stopped mattering entirely.